They say silence means peace, but hers meant something else. The day she stopped arguing with me, she started sharing everything with another man. Her thoughts, her smiles, her secrets, the ones that used to belong to me. I didn't know it then, but her silence was my warning. Before I tell you how that silence destroyed everything, hit like, share this story, and subscribe if you've ever trusted someone too much. I used to think love was supposed to feel easy once you'd been together long enough. Like after the storms, you were in calm seas. That's what it felt like with Alina. We had built something real. Not perfect, but real. She was the kind of woman who could argue with fire in her eyes one moment and laugh the next, pulling me back in before the smoke cleared. Our home was full of that energy, messy, loud, alive. The kind of love that felt like music, sometimes offbeat, but always ours. I remember those little things, her correcting me about movie details, teasing me about how I made coffee, rolling her eyes when I forgot her favorite show's timing. It wasn't annoying. It was her way of caring. When she argued, I knew she was still invested, still choosing to show up. Every conversation, no matter how small, felt like proof that we were still in it together. I never thought that silence could hurt more than shouting ever could. It started slowly, a day here, a pause there. She stopped correcting me, stopped laughing at the small mistakes she used to find endearing. At first I thought maybe she was just tired, or maybe she was trying to be more understanding. I even told myself, finally, we've matured. No more fights, no more drama. But peace without passion isn't peace. It's distance dressed in calm. I'd talk to her about my day and she'd just nod, smile faintly, and look at her phone. Her phone became her companion, always beside her, screen lighting up like a secret. I told myself not to overthink it. We trust each other, right? But trust, I learned, doesn't vanish all at once. It fades, one unanswered question at a time. And the cruel part was, I didn't notice how far she'd drifted until I realized how quiet the house had become. No laughter, no teasing. Just two people breathing in the same space, pretending it still meant something. That's when I started to feel it, that uneasy calm, the kind that comes right before everything falls apart. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from disconnection. That's what started to creep into our lives, quietly like dust collecting on things we stopped paying attention to. Alina wasn't cold. She was polite. Too polite. Her voice lost the rough edges that used to make her real. Every sentence felt rehearsed, like she was performing calm instead of living it. She'd agree with me on everything. Movies, plans, opinions, even the things she used to fight me on. And I should have been happy, right? I used to pray for fewer arguments. But when she stopped challenging me, it felt like I was talking to a version of her that wasn't really there. She would just smile, that small, distant smile. And I'd catch her glancing at her phone again, a small flicker of light cutting through the dark room. I started noticing patterns. She'd turn her phone face down when I walked in. She'd laugh softly at something she wouldn't explain. I'd ask, "What's funny?" And she'd say, "Nothing. Just a meme." But that laugh, it wasn't the kind she shared with me anymore. It was gentler, quieter, reserved for someone else. One evening, I came home early. She didn't hear me at first. She was sitting on the couch, smiling at her screen, that kind of deep smile that used to belong to me. The moment she noticed me, the smile vanished. She locked her phone and asked, "You're home early?" That tiny hesitation in her voice had said everything she didn't. That night, I lay awake next to her, watching the faint glow of her phone light up her face in the dark. Her fingers moved fast, her eyes soft. I didn't ask who it was. I just turned away. Because sometimes silence isn't the absence of words. It's the presence of answers you're not ready to face. That was the moment I realized peace can be the loudest kind of heartbreak. It started with a name, Rylan, just a casual mention during dinner one night. "He's new at work," she said, almost like she was testing how it would sound out loud. I didn't think much of it then. We all have friends, right? But soon, his name started weaving its way into every corner of our conversations. "Rylan said this," or "Rylan thinks that." Oh. At first, I smiled. I even joked, "Seems like Rylan has all the answers these days." She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Over the next few weeks, Rylan became a shadow in our relationship, always there. Even when he wasn't, she talked about his sense of humor, how he understands her work stress, how he's easy to talk to. I started to notice that when she spoke about him, her voice softened in a way it hadn't for me in a long time. It wasn't obvious, but it was there, that invisible thread of connection you can't explain, only feel. Then came the subtle changes. She started dressing differently, not drastically, just more deliberate. She spent longer getting ready for work, smiled at her phone before leaving. I'd ask simple questions, everything okay at work? And she'd nod, quick and distant, like she didn't want to linger in that moment. One night, she showed me a text, something funny Rylan had sent. She laughed as she read it aloud. But I noticed how her thumb hovered over his name a little too long after the laughter faded. It wasn't the text that bothered me. It was the comfort, the familiarity. That's when I began to realize what was really happening. She didn't stop arguing because she grew calmer. She stopped because she found someone new to share her energy with. Someone who made her feel seen in a way I apparently no longer did. And for the first time, I understood that betrayal doesn't always begin with lies. Sometimes it begins with laughter that no longer belongs to you. The distance between us wasn't loud. It was quiet, invisible, like air slowly leaving a room. I could feel it even when she was sitting right next to me. Our conversations became short, mechanical exchanges. How was your day? Fine, you ate. Yeah, that was it. The warmth was gone, replaced by something hollow. It's strange how two people can live under the same roof and feel like strangers in their own home. I tried to bring her back, planned a dinner, cooked her favorite pasta, even opened that old playlist she used to love. She smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that melts you. It was polite, careful, the kind people give when they don't want to be rude. Her phone kept lighting up during dinner, and she kept turning it face down. Once I caught a glimpse, just a single word, Rylan. When I asked about it, her expression hardened. He's just a friend, UN. You're overthinking again. That word again cut deeper than I expected. It meant this wasn't the first time she thought I was losing trust. But she didn't realize trust wasn't what was breaking. It was connection. Her laughter became rarer, her energy softer, but distant. I'd try to talk, she'd sigh, and I'd end up apologizing for just wanting to feel close again. Every time I reached out, she stepped back emotionally, if not physically. One night I asked her directly, "Do you still love me, Alina?" She paused. That single second of hesitation felt like an eternity. Then she said, "Of course I do." But her eyes said something else. That night, I lay in bed watching her scroll her phone until she fell asleep. The glow on her face looked almost peaceful, but it wasn't peace I saw. It was detachment. And for the first time, I realized, love doesn't always end in shouting. Sometimes it dies quietly, one silent night at a time. It was a Thursday night, I remember, because she told me she'd be working late, finishing a presentation with her team. I believed her. I always did. But that night, something felt off. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the silence, that uneasy quiet that wraps around you when the truth is just waiting to be found. I drove home early, thinking I'd surprise her with takeout from her favorite place. When I walked in, the lights were dim and I could hear a soft voice coming from the living room. At first, I thought she was watching something. But then I heard her laugh, that low, sweet laugh I hadn't heard in weeks. I followed the sound. She was on a video call. Her face was lit up by the screen, her smile so real, so unguarded, the kind I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. I stood there for a moment, frozen in the doorway, trying to make sense of it. And then I heard his voice. "Rylan, she noticed me too late." Her smile fell. The phone tilted down. Her voice trembled as she said, "Oon. This isn't what it looks like." Sentence every betrayed person hears right before their world collapses. I asked her quietly at first, "How long?" She shook her head, eyes glistening. "It's not like that. He's just someone I talk to." Something inside me cracked open. My voice rose, not from rage, but from pain that had nowhere else to go. "Someone you talk to? You stopped talking to me?" The argument that followed wasn't loud, it was raw. Every word felt heavy, final. She accused me of being controlling. I accused her of already leaving me long before tonight. When she finally grabbed her coat and walked out, slamming the door behind her, the sound echoed through every corner of the house. And just like that, the silence she once gave me was back, only this time it was permanent. The days after she left felt unreal, like I was living inside an echo. Every corner of the house carried her voice, her scent, her laughter. But what hurt the most wasn't her absence, it was the uncertainty. The way my mind kept replaying that moment, trying to decide if I'd overreacted or if I'd finally seen what had been there all along. I didn't hear from her for days. No calls, no messages. Just silence. The kind that sits heavy on your chest. I tried convincing myself it was just space, that maybe she needed time. But deep down, I already knew. Something inside me had already accepted the truth my heart refused to say out loud. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from a friend who worked near her office. Just a picture, no words. Alina and Rylan sitting at an outdoor cafe. Her hand resting lightly on his arm, both of them smiling, that same effortless smile she once saved for me. My stomach dropped. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until the phone almost slipped from them. In that single moment, everything connected. The silence, the late nights, the polite smiles, the "you're overthinking." It all made sense now. She hadn't stopped arguing because she was tired of fighting. She stopped because she found someone else to listen to her. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, feeling the kind of emptiness that doesn't break you immediately. It dissolves you slowly, piece by piece. I remember whispering to myself, so this is what betrayal really looks like. Quiet, smiling, sitting across a coffee cup. That night I didn't text her. I didn't call. For the first time, I let the silence stay. Because sometimes, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the only way to survive the truth. When you've been broken in silence, your first instinct is to scream. But I didn't. I stayed quiet, not out of weakness, but out of something colder, stronger. The kind of calm that comes when pain finally burns itself out and turns into clarity. I stopped chasing closure, stopped refreshing her messages, stopped wondering why. Instead, I focused on the one thing she never expected me to, myself. At first, it was strange. Waking up alone, making coffee, without her laughter in the background. But gradually, the emptiness started feeling lighter. I began to fill the silence with something better. Progress. I went back to the gym, picked up projects I'd left halfway, met old friends I'd neglected. Every small step forward felt like taking back a piece of myself she'd quietly taken away. She still followed me on social media. I didn't block her. No, I wanted her to see the version of me that didn't crumble, the version she thought wouldn't exist without her. I posted pictures not of revenge, but of growth. Me at a work event, smiling again. A weekend hike. Dinner with friends. Small glimpses of a man rebuilding. Then, one evening, her name appeared on my screen again. Just a simple message, "You've changed." I stared at it for a while before typing back. So did you. I didn't wait for her reply. That night, I looked in the mirror and realized something. I didn't want her back. I didn't want an apology. I wanted peace. Not the fake kind she'd left me with, but the real kind you earn after walking through hell and refusing to stay there. Revenge didn't mean hurting her. It meant showing her she no longer had the power to hurt me. And for the first time in months, I smiled, not out of pride, but freedom. Months passed, and with every sunrise, the weight on my chest grew lighter. I wasn't healed overnight, but I was finally learning to live without the echo of her voice. I stopped checking her profile, stopped wondering where she was, who she was with. She became a distant chapter, one I could finally read without pain. Then one afternoon, out of nowhere, karma arrived. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, poetic. A mutual friend mentioned that Rylan had left the company. Apparently, he'd started dating someone else, and Alina had taken some time off work. I didn't ask for details, but later curiosity betrayed me. I looked her up. Her posts were fewer, her smiles dimmer. That spark in her eyes, the one I once loved, was gone. A week later, she texted me. Her name lighting up my phone felt surreal. The message was short. I miss our peace. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to ask why she missed it only after destroying it. But instead, I agreed to meet her for coffee. When I saw her, she looked different. Not bad, just tired. There were faint shadows under her eyes, a kind of exhaustion that came from chasing happiness and losing it. She smiled when she saw me, and for a brief second, I saw the woman I used to know. She said softly, "You seem happy." Nodded. "I am." She told me how things with Rylan had fallen apart, how he wasn't who she thought he was. I listened, quietly. No anger, no gloating, just silence. The same silence she once gave me. As I stood up to leave, she whispered, "I wish I hadn't stopped talking to you." I smiled faintly and said, "You didn't stop talking, Alina. You just started talking to the wrong person." And in that moment, karma didn't need to speak. It had already been served. We met again a week later, not because I wanted to, but because she insisted. She said she needed closure, though I knew what that really meant. Sometimes people don't come back for closure. They come back to feel something familiar, something that once made them whole. We sat across from each other in that same cafe where we used to plan our weekends. The air between us was heavy, filled with things we'd never said when it actually mattered. Alina looked smaller somehow, not in size, but in presence. The confidence that once made her glow had dimmed. She started softly, her voice fragile. "I made mistakes, Yuen. I thought I was finding peace, but I was just running from discomfort." "You didn't deserve that." I stayed quiet. I wanted to believe her, but her words sounded like someone describing regret, not love. She continued, "He made me feel understood. For a while, I thought that was love, but it wasn't. It was just attention." Her eyes shimmered, and for the first time I saw genuine sorrow. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she said, "I miss you. I miss what we had." I took a breath, letting the silence stretch. My heart didn't ache anymore. It just felt distant, almost numb. "You know," I said slowly, "I spent months wondering what I did wrong, but I get it now. You didn't stop loving me because of what I did. You stopped because of what you needed. And that's okay." She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled back gently. No anger, no bitterness, just peace. I stood up and she whispered, "So, that's it?" I nodded. "That's it." As I walked away, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. She had finally felt the silence she once gave me, and this time it was hers to keep. That was the real closure. Not words, not apologies, just the quiet realization that I was finally free. It's strange how healing doesn't arrive all at once. It comes quietly through small moments you barely notice. A morning where the coffee tastes good again. A song that used to hurt now just sounds like music. A night where you fall asleep without replaying old conversations. That's how I knew I was finally moving on. For a long time, I thought I needed revenge. Some grand cinematic payback that would make her regret everything. But life has its own way of balancing things. Karma isn't loud and it doesn't rush. It's patient. It waits until you've stopped caring about the outcome. Then it unfolds naturally, beautifully. I began to understand that peace isn't the absence of pain. It's the acceptance of it. The ability to look at the past without wanting to rewrite it. Alina's betrayal broke me, yes, but it also rebuilt me. It stripped away the version of me that was always trying to be enough for someone else. In losing her, I found myself again. Sometimes I wonder if she ever found the peace she was chasing. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But I stopped needing to know. Because that was her lesson, and mine was simple. People who leave you for peace often end up searching for it forever, while those who were left learn how to create it within themselves. One evening, I walked by the same cafe where everything began, the one from that photo that once shattered me. This time, it didn't sting. The memory was just that, a memory. I smiled, not because I forgot, but because I finally understood. Her silence once destroyed me. Mine rebuilt me. And that's the beauty of karma. It doesn't come to punish, it comes to teach. And when it's done, it leaves behind something stronger than revenge. Clarity. Looking back now, I realize every heartbreak, every sleepless night, every unanswered question had a purpose. I used to think closure came from someone explaining why they hurt you. But real closure comes when you stop needing that explanation. When you stop asking why me and start saying thank you for the lesson. If you've ever been in my place, sitting in the dark, wondering how someone could love you one day and drift away the next, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're just being redirected. Sometimes the universe removes people quietly, not to punish you, but to protect you from a love that would have kept shrinking you. I learned that love doesn't end when someone walks away. It ends when you stop waiting for their footsteps to return. It ends when you choose peace over proof, when you decide that silence can be beautiful if it belongs to healing, not avoidance. Alina's story ended long before she realized it. Mine began the day I stopped needing her to understand what she'd done. The day I learned that forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. Because holding on to pain doesn't make them stay. It just keeps you stuck in the same moment they left. So if you're listening to this and you're standing at that same edge I once did, remember this. The same silence that once broke you can also rebuild you. And one more thing. If this story touched your heart, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more truths after love. Because sometimes the stories we tell aren't about the people who hurt us. They're about the people we become after they do. In the end, karma isn't cruel. It's fair. It just waits for the right time to show you who truly lost.